Hello, you guys, and welcome to another episode of the Health and Wellness Summit. I am Courtney Miracle, your host. I am joined today by Kelly West. Kelly is a registered nurse, she's a breathwork facilitator, and a neuro life coach. So she has so many things to share with us. So, Kelly, welcome. How are you today?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much, Courtney, for having me here today.
Of course. So, tell us a little bit about what you do and maybe some of your story as you've started to shift gears from nursing into some other paths.
Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, as Courtney said, I'm a registered nurse. I've been a registered nurse for over 25 years now, goodness. And as much as I love that, and it has brought me a lot of fulfillment, one of the things that I learned, especially this last year and a half, is how important just understanding our mental health and understanding how we can and need to take care of ourselves to continue really going. And this last year, not only myself, but I found myself really in a point of burnout, as well as so many of my colleagues, healthcare providers, nurses and whatnot, just going through this past year. Not to mention so many other people, but definitely those of us in healthcare, feeling the burnout, feeling the overwhelm, the stress that just seemed to like never end. And so, really, my passion has been, and I've been coaching, doing neuro coaching for the last couple of years, and now am a breathwork facilitator, and just finding how amazing that is to just have that mind body connection really ingrained, just embodied in me, that has helped me move out of that burnout stage and back into resiliency, because we all can be resilient, but sometimes it takes some time to find ourselves again. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
I love that. And I think resiliency is a big thing. So how do you define resilience and kind of walk me through a little bit of what that looks like when people come to you of like what are they struggling with? And probably the obvious overwhelm, all of those things, but like what how do you define resiliency and how do you move them closer to that?
Yeah. So, I define resiliency like a lot of people talk about, resiliency is just that bouncing back from a stressful or traumatic event, right? But resiliency really looks so different for everybody. I heard a beautiful analogy that I love about, we look at how different trees sort of can be resilient. We can have palm trees that, blow over in the wind and spring back, and we can have redwood trees that stand tall all the time through no matter what. And we can have cypress trees that just sort of mold and blend with the wind. And so it's just, I love that because it's really so different and unique for everybody, as to how they are resilient. But if you are here and you are listening or you're reaching out to somebody, you're already resilient, even though you always feel that. And I get that sometimes. When I was in heavy burnout, you kind of wonder if I'm ever going to get back, if I'm going to feel. I don't really feel resilient in those moments, but you are, because you're continuing to still go. And so sometimes it's just baby steps to get there. But that's how I look at resiliency. And so when clients come to me, it's really just really understanding where they're at, and what is important to them. What are they looking for? Understanding and accepting where they're at, but also what is that they're looking for, and how can we move them from point A to point B?
Yeah. So with burnout, I mean, probably see this in a lot of people. Is it usually job related, just life related? Like when people are coming to you, what are the sensations that they're feeling that they really define as burnout?
Yeah. So I think a lot of it has been just a lot of that apathy. It can be with work, it can be kind of like bleeds over into their life, apathy with, the just life in general, apathy with their job. They're just not caring so much anymore. They're just too exhausted, from work to come home and give anything to their kids, to their families. And they really want that, but they're just feeling too tired, too exhausted, too depleted. And so a lot of that, along with, a lot of people struggle with anxiety, sometimes depression, those kind of things that kind of blend in when you have heavy burnout, is really how can we, one, take care of ourselves so innately. And especially I find, sometimes as women, we just say we got to keep going, we got to keep going, we got to keep going, right? And it's selfish of us to take this break. It's selfish of us to stop and say, I need to have, some help. But it is also so crucial and so important for us to do that for ourselves, because it really feeds into our careers and our jobs and our kids and being a mom and wife and all of that. So it's just so incredible to see that difference, once we can go from that one and understanding where we're at to, just making that change. And it takes time. So it's not something like overnight that, we snap our fingers, but just like anything else that we have to and we want to get good at and be better at, it just takes time.
Yeah, yeah. So I know that you use breath work as one of your modalities. So kind of explain, we've had a few people on here that talk about breath work, but everybody does it a little bit differently and uses it differently in their practice. So when you work with clients, like how do you use breath? What do you see as really, I know obviously you're a neuro coach, which I'm going to have you explain a little more too, but how do you use breath to really help people start to move from where they are to where they want to go?
Yeah. What I've learned and what I love so much about breath work is really, I love meditation, I love the neuroscience, I love all of that. And, breath is also such a beautiful modality because we can move away from that mind. We can let go of that mind where sometimes we are just so stuck in that structured mind that we ruminate about, what things that are going on in our lives or how we want things to look or, just the negative things we say to ourselves. Right. And so, breath for me and what I, have done when I work with clients is really just looking at how can we just let that mind go, and that's what I love about it, and then just drop into our bodies and just allow whatever is moving through us and trust that energy and trust that movement within our breath, as it does tap into our brain as well, by releasing emotion, by releasing, all those stories and sometimes memory, and a lot of things can come up, but we just can allow it to be released, and we don't have to make a story about it. We don't have to give meaning to it. We can just feel it and allow it to be released, which is I love too, because I feel like so many people, have a hard time sometimes verbalizing their story, verbalizing what is their struggle and what's going on with them, and with breath, none of that really matters. That we can just allow that emotion to become up, and we can just allow it to be released, and it's kind of like, in a lot of I think, when if you've gone through therapy, and I've done all of these things, but it's like you start to feel better, or you take medicine and you're like, oh, it doesn't really, I don't notice anything, huge, but all of a sudden I'm just like feeling better. And I feel like breath works like that as well, is that you don't maybe notice, a giant shift. Some people do during the breath, but over time, when you practice it, all of a sudden you're just like, wow, I feel lighter. Like these things that used to like feel like they used to weigh me down or feel heavy on my chest are no longer. So I love that about the breath work.
Yeah, and I think a lot when people are in burnout, it's this contractive, right? Like everything you said, heavy, everything just feels contractive. And I know for me, like when I practice breath and obviously I'm a facilitator as well, it's like there's just an expansion, right? And you can't, like you said, you can't explain it. You're just like, I feel more like this and less like this, right? And so
Totally.
it just, I think it starts to shed a different perspective. Whereas the stuff that's happening in your life might not shift, but the way you relate to it starts to change. And I love what you said about the stories, and like we don't have to do all of that, which was what makes breath so powerful so quickly. Yes, I love that. So talk to me. Why, I don't know what a neuro life coach is. So tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about what that entails and kind of what that work looks like.
Yeah, so neurocoaching is really, looking at that science-based neuroscience piece of it. And, as a nurse, somebody that's been in healthcare for a long time, that certainly attracted me to that, and understanding the neuroscience behind how our brain works, how those synapses work, and looking at all the thoughts that come in our brains. We have thousands and thousands of thoughts a day, and a lot of them ruminate over and over again. And when we have thoughts a lot of times create emotion. And then those thoughts and emotions repeated over and over become our beliefs over time. And so, sometimes those beliefs serve us well, and sometimes those thoughts and emotions and those beliefs don't serve us well. When we get into things like, I'm not good enough, I can't, do X, Y, and Z. I'm a terrible mom. Like all of these things. And like I said, the stories that we tell ourselves. And it's like, it's the subconscious that we have to ourselves so long, for so many years sometimes, that it's just ingrained. We don't even realize that we're saying it to ourselves
Yeah.
until we make ourselves a little bit more aware of what are those stories. And so it's really identifying, again, what are those thoughts that are coming up? What are those automatic negative thoughts that are popping up from our subconscious that are just always there? And how can we look at changing those thoughts, refuting those thoughts, and rewiring actually those synapses so that it changes and over time causes a new firing in the brain that causes a new thought, a new positive thought to form. And that has been shown through neuroscience that that can actually happen. So we are able to rewire our thoughts into a more positive mindset, and so that we don't have, these constantly negative stories that are on autopilot all the time.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So if somebody wanted to start to do some of this at home, I know you have some amazing tips for us. So like where would somebody start, and then what can they do to start to do some of this, if they're not yet working with a coach, what can they do at home that could start to shift some of these beliefs?
Sure, sure. So I always like the ABCs. I go back to, I always, in healthcare, again, we're all about ABCs, airway, breathing, and circulation. But for this, I always say acknowledge, breathe, and choose. So first, we can always just acknowledge. I do this in neuro coaching and certainly with breathwork as a facilitator, just acknowledging where we're at. And if we're in a state of burnout, if we're in just a negative kind of mindset place in our lives, like just acknowledging without, judgment, without shame upon ourselves, acknowledging where we're at, right? And just noticing that we have these negative thoughts and that they're just, part of our subconscious. Really observing and acknowledging where we are in our body. So I love, the practice of just putting hands on body and just like sitting with ourselves for a few minutes and kind of starting to just understand and acknowledge and feel where we're at in our bodies. Do we feel that tightness in our chest? Do we feel, tightness in our bellies? Where are we feeling anything? Or do we just feel numb? And just acknowledging where we're at. And then breathing, I love, the breathing is like such a big component. And as every emotion comes, every emotion has a corresponding breath pattern. So when we're anxious, we have short, small breath patterns, versus when we're calm and we're at peace, it's tend to be that deeper, more relaxed breath. And so really just taking the time. And I think that was one of the, beautiful things that I was working through when I was going through burnout, was also just learning to just take some of those deep breaths, even a 5-second inhale and a 5-second exhale, and just allowing ourselves to just have that peace in our lives. Because also when we are just, breathing so shallow and having that anxiety loop and those negative thoughts going on, we can't really think clearly, right? So
Right.
sometimes we just need to calm ourselves down and calm our nervous systems down. And I love the breath for that. And then choosing, I feel like we all have choice. We all have choice, and we're able to choose again. So, just because we're in this spot, or these, things happen to us, or this is my circumstance currently, doesn't mean we can't change. So if we're in a soul sucking job, if we're in a relationship that doesn't serve us or is not working, if we're in poor health, we always have that choice to choose again. And although it's not easy, we always have a choice. We don't have to wait for the next Monday. We don't have to wait for the next year. We can choose in this minute to say, right now, I'm going to go for a walk. Right now, I'm going to speak more loving to my kids. Right now, I'm going, whatever. And so always knowing that we have choice to end our suffering, because sometimes we get into those negative thoughts and everything, and we choose our suffering. And so it's allowing ourselves to say, I can choose again and be a different person.
Love that. I literally said that to one of my clients today. I'm like, it's always a choice and we get to choose again. Like maybe you made the wrong choice and you get to choose again. And I think there's so much like empowerment that comes from acknowledging where you are. I love the ABCs. I didn't know what they were before we started, what your version was, but like the acknowledgement of just like, it's okay to be here, right? And it's okay, now I get to choose again. And once you have the acknowledgement, like, so much power, I think, comes to people when they start to accept that they have a choice, right?
Yeah.
And like, life is not happening to them. Like,
Right.
it's, it's like you just get to choose, and we can make bad choices and we get to choose again, right? I mean, it's like, that's just beautiful. So, oh hi, we're gonna have a visitor. I knew this would happen at some point. Would you like to say hi? So for those of you who haven't met Skylar, this is Skylar.
Hi.
Okay, go. This is the only interview she's made an appearance, but yeah, so that's Sky. Okay, I love you. Sorry. So when people work with you, talk to us a little bit about how you work with your clients. Is it one-to-one? Is it group? Like, what kind of services do you offer to help people start to move through those ABCs?
Yeah, so I do offer one-on-one coaching, which I've loved and I've been doing for a couple 3 years. And yeah, that looks different for everybody. We kind of work through what that looks like, but generally it's a like I said, we don't change things overnight. And so I think when we get really dive deep into one-on-one coaching, that can take 4 to 6 months. And so really looking at that longer time frame and commitment to really make that life change, right? So but I love working with my clients one on one. And then I also now offer both private and group breathwork sessions. So I have those available as well. And those are, again, like, as you know, so powerful to be able to offer, all different types of breathwork sessions, whether it's integrative, meditative, and loving all of that. So, yeah, I offer all of that.
I love it. I love it. Are you doing anything in person yet for anybody in Colorado? Or is it all virtual?
Yeah, so far it's still virtual. I've been looking at some potential, and if hopefully maybe this summer to get some in-person events, that would be amazing to get back. I feel that connection is so important for us to get back to, and that, I think a lot of the burnout sometimes has been a lot of that separation we've all had. So having some in-person events, hopefully in the next few months will be great. But so far it's still virtual, and I'll probably still continue virtual
Right.
for even though, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, virtual is beautiful because people
Yeah.
can be anywhere, right? But
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
I'm with
Yeah.
you on the connection piece of just the world needs that right now. And there's like, virtual breath is amazing, but I believe in-person breath has such a, it's just so amazing. So well,
Yeah.
I love this. Thank you so much. So tell the viewers where they can find you, Facebook, website, where's the best place to connect with you?
Yep. Best place probably is Instagram. I hang out there mostly, Kelly West Online. Or I'm also Kelly West Online on Facebook, but I'm mostly on Instagram. So they can follow me over there. And then, certainly can reach out to me via email even. So kellywestonline@gmail.com. So I would love to hear from you.
Perfect. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And you guys reach out to Kelly. She's incredible. If you're feeling just bogged down and stressed and overwhelmed, she's got some amazing tools. And if you know healthcare workers that might need someone, you can gently pass on her info, because I believe that all of them do after the last year. So Kelly, thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thank you so much.